In this brief presentation, we will show you what you can expect from the online SciPhD training program. The SciPhD online training course will introduce you to 24 business competencies in 6 major categories that are perceived as valuable in the private sector. You'll be introduced to each of these competencies with a detailed explanation of what they are, often with examples that relate to your work as a scientist. As you go through each competency, you can pause the audio portion and replay parts as often as you like in order to clearly understand the concepts. You will also be provided with some specific questions whose goal is to relate your previous experiences with the business competency being discussed. Think about your answers to each of these questions, as you will then use those answers to come up with a one-sentence value statement that succinctly describes how your past experiences have provided you with familiarity with this business competency. Finally, based on your experience in learning about the competency and the ease or difficulty you experience in developing a value statement, you will be asked to rank yourself with respect to this competency on a scale of 1 to 5, with a 5 being complete understanding and a 1 being no familiarity at all, or even an understanding that the competency is even important. The same pattern of explanation, questions, value statement, and self-assessment will be repeated for each of the competencies. You should expect to take at least 2 hours to go through all 24 competencies, and more likely 3 or more hours to carefully understand and accurately assess your abilities. We recognize your time is valuable, and so the course provides you with the ability to stop and save your work at any time. If you log out of the system, when you do come back, you will be brought right back to the point at which you left off. Upon completion of the assessment, you will have the opportunity to review and modify your value statements and assessment scores. And then the system will generate a detailed report that summarizes your stated abilities in all competencies and the implications of those assessments in thinking about your strengths and weaknesses. The report will also graphically display your competencies in all 6 major areas in the context of what is expected or required in different kinds of companies for different kinds of positions. A detailed talent map depicts your competencies against those that are considered important by job function, company size, company life cycle, and degree of independence. In each of these maps, competencies considered critical are colored red, and those considered highly desirable but not critical are colored blue. Any competencies in which you have assigned yourself a 4 or a 5 are depicted with 1 or 2 asterisks respectively. By comparing your competencies to those considered important, you can determine the kinds of jobs you're best suited for and the competencies that you should continue to develop in order to become more competitive for the jobs you ultimately desire. You can print out this report and use it as a basis for career planning to determine what kinds of jobs to look for in the short term. And by looking at the gaps between your own assessed strengths and weaknesses and those considered important for specific types of positions in specific types of companies, what types of career training you should pursue, either while on your next job or outside of work, in order to make yourself most competitive. In the example shown here, a Dr. Naveen Shah has taken the SciPhD training course that reveals relative strengths and competencies associated with achieving results as well as execution, while revealing relative weaknesses in both communication skills, developing people, and especially financial acumen. The detailed analyses and mapping of Dr. Shah's competencies to typical job descriptions in industry suggest positions in research or operations might be a good fit, and she should emphasize her credentials in achieving results, as she has demonstrated particularly good competence in this area. If Dr. Shah's long-term plans are towards either executive positions, sales, or staff support, she should plan on obtaining training in communications, developing people, and financial acumen as part of her long-term career planning. Obviously, the effectiveness of this guidance is completely dependent on your honest and objective assessment of each of your levels of competence in each of the 24 areas. So please take your time to understand the concepts and be objective and honest in ranking your abilities. You are taking an important step in broadening the opportunities available to you, and we look forward to working with you towards achieving your goals.